The judge slid the USB drive across the bench and stared at my wife's lawyer. The room went dead silent. Every camera in my house had been running for 11 months. Every single one. My name is Garrison Wolfe. I'm a 43-year-old forensic accountant. I find lies for a living. Numbers don't lie. People do. My wife, Tessa, learned that truth the hard way, in front of a packed courtroom, with her lover sitting 3 rows behind her, and her attorney turning pale beside her. She thought she had one. She was wrong. Tessa and I had been married 9 years. The house was mine before we married. I bought it cash in 2014. My name alone was on the deed. But when she filed for divorce, she claimed I had been abusive, controlling, dangerous. She said she feared for her life. She filed a protective order. She filed a police report. She had 2 friends who signed affidavits backing her story. I had to sleep in a hotel for 6 weeks while she stayed in my house with a man named Rowan Steele. I found that out later. My hands shook when I did. My chest felt like concrete those first 2 weeks. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. 9 years. I had trusted this woman. I had built something real, or so I thought. I sat in that hotel room at night staring at the ceiling. Not crying. Just cold. Because something was shifting inside me. The pain was folding itself into something sharper. I stopped feeling sorry for myself on day 14. I picked up my laptop. I logged into the cloud backup system I had installed 2 years ago. And I started watching. I had put the cameras in after a break-in in 2022. 4 outdoor units. 3 indoor, living room, hallway, home office. All motion activated. All synced to an encrypted cloud server only I could access. Tessa knew about the outdoor cameras. She did not know about the indoor ones. That was not intentional deception on my part. I had simply never mentioned them. Now I was grateful for my silence. I opened the archive. 11 months of footage. I started with the week before she filed. What I saw made my jaw tighten so hard my teeth hurt. Rowan Steele had been in my house for months. Not just visiting. Living. His shoes were at my door. His coffee cup was on my counter. He sat at my kitchen table in the mornings like he owned the place. And Tessa, my wife, laughed with him in ways I had not seen her laugh in years. I watched 3 hours of footage that first night. I did not sleep. I catalogued every timestamp, every entry, every exit. I built a spreadsheet. Dates, times, duration. 22 visits before she filed. 14 overnight stays. My accountant brain turned the betrayal into data. Data is controllable. Data wins cases. Then I found the conversation. Day 19 of my hotel stay. I still had access to our shared home network router logs. Tessa had never changed the admin password. I pulled the activity history. Her laptop had accessed a website, a legal forum, titled, How to Claim Marital Home When Deed is in Spouse's Name. She had been researching this for 4 months before she filed. For months. She had not acted on impulse. She had planned this. She had selected her accusations carefully. She had recruited her friends. She had rehearsed. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Good. Cold wins. I called my attorney the next morning. His name is Burton Case. He is not warm or friendly. He is precise and relentless, and that is exactly what I needed. I sat across from him and I put a hard drive on his desk. Everything is on here, I said. He plugged it in. He watched 4 minutes of footage. He looked up at me slowly. Is this time-stamped and unedited? Yes, I said. Encrypted cloud backup. Forensic integrity intact. Burton leaned back in his chair. He almost smiled. Almost. Garrison, he said, her lawyer is going to have a very bad day. I told him that wasn't enough. I wanted her to have a very bad year. Burton filed our counter-response within the week. We did not show our hand. Not yet. He challenged the protective order on procedural grounds. Enough to delay, not enough to reveal. Tessa's attorney, a slick man named Hargrove, sent a smug reply. He said the evidence of abuse was overwhelming and well documented. He used the word pattern. He used the word victim. Burton forwarded it to me with one line. Let him keep talking. I printed that email. I taped it to the wall of my hotel room. Every morning I looked at it. Every morning it reminded me, rope. Give them rope. I hired a private investigator next. Not for the footage. I had that. I needed Rowan Steele's background. His financials. His history. His name had come up in Tessa's legal filings. She had listed him as a supportive friend who could vouch for her emotional state. So I needed to know exactly who this supportive friend was. The investigator came back in 9 days. His report was 42 pages long. I read every word. By page 11, I was no longer angry. I was calm in a way that felt almost dangerous. Rowan Steele had 2 fraud convictions in another state. Both involved women. Both involved property. Tessa had no idea who she was sleeping with. Or maybe she did. Either way, it didn't matter for my purposes. What mattered was that her star witness, her supportive friend, was a convicted fraudster who had pulled this exact move before. Burton subpoenaed Rowan's records immediately. His prior case files. His financial history. His current accounts. We discovered something extraordinary on day 3 of the subpoena review. Rowan had taken out a personal loan using my home address as his residence. He had listed himself as a co-owner. Someone had helped him falsify that claim. Someone who knew the address well. Someone who wanted him embedded in that property as deeply as possible. I stopped sleeping in the hotel. I got an apartment. I put a plant in the window. I cooked my own food. I ran 6 miles every morning. I was not healing. I was sharpening. There is a difference. Healing is soft. What I was doing had edges. Every morning I woke up and I thought about that courtroom. I thought about Hargrove's smug emails. I thought about Tessa laughing in my kitchen. And I ran harder. Burton called me 2 weeks before the hearing. We have everything, he said. More than we need. Good, I said. Then let's not use everything. Let's use it in order. Let's make them think they're winning until they can't anymore. The hearing date arrived. I wore a grey suit. No tie. I sat straight. Tessa walked in with Hargrove. She looked confident. She had dressed carefully, understated, sympathetic. She glanced at me once. I didn't look away. She did. Hargrove opened with force. He painted me as a controlling, volatile man. He cited the police report. He cited the affidavits from Tessa's 2 friends. He said the house should be transferred to Tessa pending final settlement given her documented fear. The judge listened. Burton sat beside me making small notes. Calm. Precise. When Hargrove finished, the judge looked at Burton. Burton stood up. He said 4 words. We have video evidence. Hargrove's pen stopped moving. It was subtle. Most people missed it. I didn't. Burton approached the bench and submitted the USB drive. He requested the court projector. The judge granted it. The first clip was timestamped. My living room. Tessa and Rowan. Laughing. Cooking. Comfortable. The date on screen was 17 days before she filed the police report claiming she feared for her life. Hargrove stood up immediately. Objection. Relevance. The judge held up one hand. Sit down, counselor. Hargrove sat down. His jaw was tight. Tessa's face had gone completely still. I watched her hands. They were flat on the table. Pressing down. Pressing hard. Burton did not rush. He walked the judge through 12 clips. Each one timestamped. Each one documented. He showed Rowan entering with a key. He showed Tessa handing him that key on camera, captured by the hallway unit. He showed overnight stays. He showed mornings. He was methodical and quiet and devastating. Then he turned to the second folder. The router logs. The legal forum search history. He printed a timeline. He placed it before the judge. Mrs. Wolfe began researching property claim strategy 4 months prior to filing, Burton said. The allegations of abuse appear to have been constructed to support a predetermined legal objective. The room was very quiet. Tessa's attorney asked for a recess. The judge gave him 15 minutes. I walked to the water fountain. One of Tessa's friends, one of the affidavit signers, was sitting in the gallery. She watched me walk past. She looked down at her hands. She knew. She had signed a document. A false one. And now she was watching the whole thing collapse in real time. I didn't say a word to her. I got my water. I walked back. I sat down. Burton leaned over and said quietly, "Hargrove is going to try to reframe this as a surveillance violation." I nodded. "Let him," I said. The cameras were legal. My house. My property. Installed before any dispute. When we resumed, Hargrove tried exactly that. He argued the indoor footage was obtained invasively. He used words like privacy and dignity. Burton was ready. He submitted the original installation receipts. The camera registration documentation. He cited 3 precedents. The judge listened. Then she said, "And I will remember this for the rest of my life. Counselor, the recordings were made in a property solely owned by Mr. Wolfe, in which he held full legal right of access and monitoring. Your objection is overruled." Hargrove pressed his lips together. Tessa wrote something on her notepad. She slid it to him. He read it. His expression didn't change. But his hand was not steady. Then came Rowan. Burton called him to the stand. He walked up looking like a man who had rehearsed confidence. It didn't hold. Burton laid the fraud convictions on the table. Asked him to confirm his name, his history, his prior charges. Rowan said they were resolved matters. Burton nodded pleasantly. Then he showed the loan document. The one with my address. The one listing Rowan as co-owner. "Did you file this document?" Burton asked. Rowan said he didn't recall. Burton showed him a second document. A signature. His signature. "Does that refresh your memory?" Rowan's lawyer, seated in the gallery, was on his feet before Rowan could answer. This was no longer just a divorce hearing. The judge called a brief administrative pause. When she returned, her tone had changed. She had reviewed the loan document. She referred the matter to the fraud unit formally, on the record, before continuing. Tessa was gripping her pen. I could see it from across the room. White knuckles. 9 years I had known those hands. I had never seen them shake like that. Good. Burton moved to the property question. He submitted the original deed. Premarital purchase. My name only. No joint acquisition. No contribution claim that could be documented. Hargrove argued marital contribution. Burton asked him to produce financial records showing Tessa's monetary input into the property. He couldn't. Because there wasn't any. The protective order was the next to fall. Burton requested it be vacated given the evidentiary record. The judge reviewed the police report Tessa had filed. She reviewed the footage from the corresponding dates. She looked at Tessa over her glasses. She did not look sympathetic. She vacated the order. On the record. With findings. That meant it wasn't just dismissed. It was formally noted as unsupported. Tessa's carefully built story was being dismantled piece by piece, in sequence, in public. Her 2 friends who had filed affidavits were now exposed to perjury review. Hargrove requested another recess. Denied, the judge said flatly. We're finishing today. Hargrove made one last attempt. He argued emotional distress. He argued Tessa had been manipulated and surveilled. He used a softer voice. He tried to appeal to something human in the room. Burton stood up. He was very calm. Mr. Hargrove's client filed a false police report. She filed false affidavits. She facilitated a fraudulent loan using my client's property. She invited a man with 2 prior fraud convictions into my client's home and assisted in misrepresenting that home as jointly owned. There is no emotional distress argument that addresses those facts. The judge took off her glasses. She looked at Tessa. Mrs. Wolfe, she said, I strongly advise you to consult with your attorney privately before this proceeding concludes. They consulted. In a small room down the hall. For 22 minutes. I sat in the courtroom. Still. Burton sat beside me reading something on his phone, relaxed as a man waiting for a train. When Tessa and Hargrove returned, something had changed in her posture. The confidence was gone. Fully gone. She sat down. Hargrove spoke quietly to the judge. They were withdrawing the property claim. They were withdrawing the abuse allegations formally. They were requesting that the divorce proceed on standard no-fault terms. I looked straight ahead. Burton wrote one word on his notepad and slid it to me. Done. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. The judge finalized the property ruling before we left. The house remained mine. Solely mine. The false police report was referred for prosecutorial review. The perjured affidavits were referred. The fraudulent loan document was already in the hands of the fraud unit. Tessa walked out of that courtroom with nothing she had come in to take. Hargrove walked beside her, not speaking. I watched them go. I had spent 6 weeks in a hotel. 6 weeks being called dangerous by a woman who had been planning this for 4 months while sleeping with a con man in my house. 6 weeks of concrete in my chest. I walked out of that courthouse into the afternoon light. Burton shook my hand. Clean win, he said. Every count. I nodded. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel relief. I felt accurate. Like a calculation that had finally balanced. I had come in with the evidence. I had been patient. I had let them build their case on sand and then I had pulled the sand out from under them. Slowly, deliberately, in sequence. Tessa had banked on me not knowing. On me being blindsided. On the cameras not being there. She had miscalculated every single variable. And that miscalculation had cost her everything she had tried to take. I drove back to my apartment. I parked. I sat in the car for a moment. I thought about the house, my house, sitting there with her gone from it now, with the key she had handed to Rowan on that hallway camera. I thought about her white knuckles in that courtroom. I thought about Hargrove's unsteady hand. I thought about Rowan on the stand, not recalling his own signature. None of it made me sad. None of it made me triumphant. It made me precise. She had tried to use the law as a weapon. I had simply brought a sharper one. I started the car. I had work in the morning. Numbers to check. Lies to find. That is what I do. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.